For those on the West Coast, good morning. For those in between, good afternoon. For those in Switzerland, good evening, depending where you are tuning in from. Thank you very much for joining us virtually here at Pier 17 behind me in San Francisco for this last talk of Design at Work, Design Dialogues for 2030. I am Joy Buecher, the CEO of Swissnex San Francisco, which is the innovation outpost of Switzerland here in the Bay Area, part of a global network of 5 offices around the world that actually celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. And Switzerland is actually also home to some great designers. Now, when we started this series about 3 months ago, together with Vitra and Raphael and his team will remember, there was maybe a small glimmer of hope that at least one of these 4 events might take place in some sort of physical or at least virtual format. But here we are, it's December of this historic and memorable year, and we are still together apart, connecting through technology while safely hunkering down in our homes, at least here in San Francisco, where we have never quite come out of our homes actually since March. So as with so many challenges, this year has accelerated looming trends and developments. And what we're experiencing now is an extreme scenario of what the future of work, or now the present of work, might hold, and with all its benefits and its drawbacks. And it's hence an apt moment to rethink our workplace environment. And there is no better partner to do this with than Vitra, one of the world's leading design firms based in Switzerland, which has been pushing the boundaries of the design discipline since 80 years. And they're actually also our partner in crime when it comes to rethinking our own space at Pier 17 in San Francisco. So this is the 4th and last of a series of 4 monthly conversations hosted by Vitra's Future of Work Trendscout, Raphael, who's joining me here on the screen, and featuring a cast of high-level foresight thinkers. And these interactive discussions offer insights into concepts that Raphael has built throughout his career, visiting more than 100 companies a year until the pandemic hit the office world. Today, we have the honor to welcome Matthew Buecher to this conversation, Senior Director of Global Real Estate at Salesforce, based here at headquarters in San Francisco. And in his function, he leads the workplace design team, responsible for the company's more than 120 office locations for over 54,000 employees. So just put your mind into that and think about how many of these people right now are stuck at home. What an interesting challenge. Matthew joined Salesforce in 2018 and brings more than 20 years of experience actually, with background in product design and furniture design, store development, manufacturing, marketing, very, very rich experience. And this must be a particularly challenging and at the same time fascinating and interesting moment in your career, Matthew, as Salesforce rethinks the role of the office going forward. And we're super curious to hear more about this, also in the context of the acquisition just last week of Slack, an online collaboration platform, which might kind of be an interesting sign for where Salesforce thinking is when we think about the future of work and collaboration. Now, last thing before I hand over, for a fuller picture of the Design at Work dialogue series, please make sure to check out the recordings of the previous 3 conversations with design icons Yves Béard, Claude Zellweger, and John Panasic on the Swissnex website or on our YouTube channel. Now, over to you, Raphael. Good luck for this last one, and thank you so much, both of you, for joining us.
Yeah, so thank you. Hello, good evening, wherever you are. So for me, it's the first time that I broadcast from the Vitra campus. I'm currently 2 days at the Vitra campus. I think the first session I recorded from Frankfurt, the second from Munich, the last time from my farm, and now from the Vitra campus. So in the final session, we have with Matthew a special guest, and I believe, oh my God, what a challenge for Matthew in the last 38 weeks. Think about, you have 6 million square feet properties, offices, in these 120 locations. And out of a sudden, they close your office. Matthew, welcome, and how are you today?
Welcome. Thank you very much, Rafa. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I hope your last 38 weeks at home haven't been too rough for you, but it sounds like you're still getting around, which is nice.
A little bit, yes. So Matthew, let us know, share with us a little bit your experience in your learning. So if you go back, before we talk about the future, let us go a little bit back. If you think about March or April this year, how COVID or how the pandemic hits you in your daily business and maybe change everything what you set up before?
Oh, you know, when it finally hit out here in San Francisco, it was, you know, several weeks after things kind of kicked off in Europe. And we had kind of started looking at what to do with people and where we were going to go with this. And we actually wound up, you know, shutting things off really quickly. We use the analogy of a light switch, right? You know, we shut down all of our offices as fast as possible to kind of conform to government guidelines, and everybody kind of dispersed back to home to work, right? You know, the advantage that we have over most companies is that being a tech company, you know, we have the back end infrastructure to be able to kind of support that. You know, one of the great things about Salesforce is that one of the, I would say the second largest group of employees that we have are what we call our Ohana at home. And, you know, they were kind of the guiding light of, you know, how we were going to get our employees to kind of work remotely, right? And so we had kind of a baseline of amenities that we could kind of offer employees. We had the back end infrastructure to kind of support employees from home. And, you know, we had the technology to kind of help kind of bring people together through the various tools that we have on the Salesforce platform to kind of make sure that we're all still interconnected. And the nice part about Salesforce is, you know, our culture is one of our greatest assets. And as people kind of dispersed, you know, we were able to kind of use that culture to our advantage to kind of keep our connections going and keep the Salesforce way and the Salesforce innovation kind of marching forward. And I think you've seen the outcome of that in the last few quarters as we've done our reporting. But you know, we are still innovating. We are still, you know, curious and still learning, but also still, you know, coming up with great ideas for the platform and for our customers, and really out there trying to help our customers succeed.
So that was a good point when you mentioned the topic of culture. I visit you 2 times with groups with our learning journeys. So could you explain a little bit the audience, what is so special at this kind of culture and how this kind of culture attitude helps you in these times?
Yeah, you know, Salesforce culture is unique. You know, I've never in my 20 plus years run into anything like it before. It is, you know, it's not sales driven. It's not, you know, dollars driven. It is people driven, right? You know, our culture is our greatest competitive advantage. You know, it helps us kind of engage people. It helps drive creation, it helps drive innovation and creation at the company, you know, and ultimately it helps with one of our greatest values, which is customer success, right? You know, at Salesforce, my job specifically is, you know, delivering that physical manifestation of the culture, which is our real estate, right? And it goes beyond just the architecture and design of the spaces. You know, it's about creating a home for our employees and our customers and our community to kind of come into. We don't look at our offices as a place to come in and do work. We look at it as our community kind of meeting place for our customers, community, and employees to kind of engage, to interact, and to help each other. You know, we have a large events team, and we like to say on the real estate team that we're, you know, an events company that happens to sell software. But we do a lot of community engagement, bringing in nonprofits to help raise funds and opening our doors to customers to come in to see how, you know, we utilize our software to run Salesforce, as well as, you know, just a place for our employees to kind of hang out, interact, and meet and collaborate within comfortable and unique, I think is one word you used before, spaces that we have.
With how many people you work then in the beginning of the year on this challenge? How big is your team?
You know, I'm just a small part of it, right? You know, we came up with some of the standards around what social distancing was going to look like in the spaces, and you know, design builds the standards around that, and then we have an army of people in workplace services who are probably our most important asset because they're on the front lines, getting spaces ready, welcoming people back into the office, and making sure everybody's safe within the offices and getting everything set up. You know, the steering committee has a wide range of other disciplines, health and safety, security. And, you know, we really made sure that we pulled in as much data and information to make sure that we're making the right decisions as we kind of reopen offices. We look towards, you know, community guidelines in terms of health and safety. We looked at employee surveys to make sure that employees wanted to come back into the office. And we also took into consideration, you know, business needs that might be happening within the various regions. That way we kind of had a full view of what we're doing as we're kind of opening the office and making sure we're doing it for the right reasons.
You was one of the earliest companies who published a paper to give not only yourself and even your customers or friends or anybody who wants to download the paper, guidance and orientation, how to deal with COVID, and also how to step in I would say, in this infrastructure of the unknown, while nobody knows how to deal with that. Was that part of your teamwork or was that part of another team?
That was part of our teamwork. It's also part of, you know, the workplace services team and our health and safety crew and ES. You know, everything at Salesforce is a collaboration. You know, even in times of remote working, you know, we had to come together and figure out how to communicate and align on ideas and make sure that we're all marching in the same direction. We wanted to make sure that, you know, we didn't have little groups kind of going off and doing their own thing. So we came together quite quickly and started looking at what it was going to take to reopen our buildings, because we knew, just as the analogy of, you know, a light switch going off and everything went dark, we knew that it wasn't going to be an immediate back to work. It was going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of work on a lot of people's part. And we equate it to a dimmer switch coming back on rather than a light switch with turning the lights back on. And we've had great success. We've got offices open in New Zealand, Australia, and different parts of Asia. And people have been coming back safely and securely and bring customers back into the office as well. And it's been fantastic. And probably one of the most important factors that led us into this and allowed us to kind of open our buildings back up and be able to kind of welcome people back in is the kind of creation of work.com that we did initially when we started to go home at the beginning of the pandemic. Work.com has allowed us to kind of align within a technological platform to make data-driven decisions based on local guidelines, business needs, and employees' responses. You know, it gave us tools to assess building readiness to make sure that buildings had all the right parts and pieces to go in. And it's also helping us with facilitating time shift management of when people can come in, whether we have facilities for them, to make sure that we have the right people coming in at the right time so that people can collaborate together. And it's really helped with our facility preparedness, making sure, you know, buildings are up to snuff, whether it's HVAC, whether we had plexiglass barriers installed, whether we had all the right marketing pieces to help kind of guide people through, and whether we're communicating with building managers to make sure that, you know, we have access to elevators and whatnot within the building.
So you are in how many countries you have buildings or you operate teams?
I think we operate in 28 different countries around the globe and 120 different locations.
So there must be a lot of learnings. So for yourself, was there any country where you were surprised about the advantage, how they deal with this issue?
I think with anything, there are always regional differences as to how people respond to a pandemic. If you see Asia and Australia and New Zealand are coming back, quite forcefully back into the office and have been able to kind of rise above what's happening with the pandemic just because of their ability to coalesce as a community and wear masks and follow rules and things like that. And a lot of that has to do with leadership. And at Salesforce, we look at it as leadership starts at the top, right? And with our company, everybody was well aligned because our leaders at the top were well aligned. And I think if you look at various countries around the world and you see the response that happens, the leadership at the top really helps kind of drive that within the country and gave us clear direction how we needed to respond as a leadership team as well, which kind of helped us get our people back into the office in the locations that we have.
What was your strongest learnings in this last weeks or months where you say, Rafa, I never mentioned that I could learn these things or that could happen?
I guess one of the biggest things for me has been the resilience of people to just keep kind of going, outside of the norm. For us, it was a little scary having everybody kind of bail out of the offices so quickly. We were worried that our culture was going to kind of erode a little bit as people left the offices. We were worried that collaboration was going to suffer and innovation was going to suffer. And we knew that people were eventually going to miss each other. And probably the best outcome of this is realizing how much people really miss each other when they're not in the office together. So everybody talks about the death of the office and everybody's going to leave and nobody's ever going to come back. And for a little bit during the summertime, I started to believe that too. And I'm like, oh, well, it's time to start looking for a new job, right? Nobody needs a digital workplace designer. So, as we kind of started talking to people and people started to get lonely at home, we realized that, our spaces are really important. They're an important part of our culture here at Salesforce. And I think they're an important part to most companies' culture. You don't have those serendipitous interactions with people when you're at home. It's not serendipity to chat somebody or, schedule a 30-minute Zoom call. It's serendipity to run into somebody and start talking about, what you did that weekend and somehow it leads to a product invention or a new idea. That's, the interactions that people miss. And that's what, real estate is there for, and good design helps kind of foster.
Did you also had conversations or how to say, frequently conversations to the governments out of your role and responsibility?
No, I mean, we have a government relations team that kind of keeps us up to date as to what's happening locally. And so that team does a fantastic job of kind of condensing what's happening in the various regions and bringing it to the steering committee that's looking at reopenings and making sure that, we're following the right guidelines and that we're not putting undue pressure on local systems or local rules to get people back in the office prematurely.
Let us talk a little bit now about the future.
Ooh.
So with the knowledge, with all your knowledge and your experience you have made recently, so if your boss would call you today and ask you, hey, Matthew, what would be your idea to build a new physical universe for Salesforce, maybe with the year 2030? Any ideas? Or we say, Rafa, that would be, I thought about these and that. And
let's see, do you want all, 10 million of them, or do you want 2 or 3?
Go ahead.
It's been it's been heavy on us the last few months as we kind of look at this. Leadership at Salesforce is talking about, the digital revolution and blowing up the office space and things like that. But we also understand that the office space is really important to the Salesforce culture, right? And it's important to our people in many, many different ways. As we talk to people and we do surveys of people, and we even look at data from pre-COVID times, right? Because honestly, as much as we like to kind of refine and hone our workspaces, they weren't perfect when we left, and there were things that we needed to fix. And so we're taking this time to step back, see if we can fix the things that were wrong before, as well as innovate to give people the spaces that we think they're going to need in the future to excel, right? The best part of this work from home that's happening is that it gave us a new tool that was there before, but not really in our grasp or not really talked about, and that's work from home. It gave us a new scenario for people to get things done in terms of a desk or a quiet zone. That's not to say that the desk is dead at the office. We're still planning on having desks because not everybody can do the quiet work and the focus work at home. So the desk is still very important at the office space, but it does have a diminished capacity now, right? And we look at our real estate before as kind of a hub within these great cities for a place where our employees can come together with our customers and our community and support the community around it, right? And they were places that we had open door policies for the community to come in and have events on the Ohana floor, which you visited with us, as well as, open to the public to come in and check out what we were doing in terms of our lobbies and whatnot. And our customers were always in the office too. They wanted to see, what made Salesforce tick. And we're always very interested to see, the designs that we have. So those things aren't going to change, right? And in fact, they're probably going to wind up amplifying. And as we look at what's happening in the workspace, that need for a desk to sit and do your work is there. But we also feel that we need to be the center of the Salesforce community as kind of the town hall where people can come together, collaborate, have those interactions. And so we're trying to figure out how to accommodate the various needs of people to come back in and collaborate together. I mean, we have a vast number of different teams, and collaboration means different things to everybody. We don't want to sit down and design, a special workspace for all the various teams that we have. We have to figure out where our commonalities lie, right? And make sure that, we're supporting everybody's needs with a flexible yet scalable solution for our office spaces. And so, at Salesforce being the size that we are, it takes various phases. We have legacy buildings that we've remodeled in the last few years that we have to take into consideration and figure out how to fit into this. We have buildings that are in flight construction wise, and we need to figure out, how to modify and adjust to that, as well as we have future planning where we're actually able to maybe do larger changes. But again, we want to make sure that it's scalable, it's accessible to all, and that we're creating that same kind of cultural experience within the workplace that encompasses the equality that we think all of our employees deserve.
So thinking beyond the home office in these, I would say, in these global headquarters of tomorrow, so there's one challenge to empower the employees more and more. And the other thing is how to accelerate with the speed of change. And so what do you think what is missing out of a perspective of an employee in the future? You offer so many different spaces in your buildings today. What could be new, or what could be like an interesting, how to say, setup in a space what is not existing today?
Today, our offices, we've got the term somebody coined in the office, the sea of desks. We have what we like to call our social hub, which is our social lounge where the kitchen is. We have a TV, we have a sofa, where people kind of can congregate and interact. And that is really one of the few kind of places on each individual employee floor where people can kind of be a little bit more relaxed. And what we want to do, and we also have the Ohana floor that you're on as well. And this leads to another turn of phrase that we throw around the office, where it's, you know, one of the things we want to look at is combining those social spaces in the Ohana floor and bringing the Ohana floor down a little bit to the employee floor. And what that means is trying to find a way to not only give the employees the desk that they need to do their more focused work, but also on top of those desks, give them a little bit more focus area that's maybe even more secluded, but also give them a little bit more of a social setting for them to do their work. You know, people aren't necessarily going to come back as an individual on a regular basis to sit in the office and work every day. They're going to come back with intent and purpose. They're going to come back with the need to meet with people, with the need to visit customers, with the need to engage with the community that's at work. And so what we want to do is develop furniture solutions and settings within the workspace that help accelerate that.
So in the future, how important will be the physical space to go ahead with your game-changing software and the products you design and produce in the future? Is space a key resource for your activities?
Yes, it is. You know, real estate is still a very important part of Salesforce. You know, we put our towers as the hub of some of the most important cities to Salesforce, right? And, you know, we look at that as our commitment to that city and the commitment to the community. You know, we are different than most companies in that we don't offer, you know, in-house amenities. We like to have our employees engage with the communities. And we've come to feel that we are an important part of those communities, right? And you see it now, and it really hurts us as we look at some of our downtown hubs where, you know, a lot of the businesses are either closed or going out of business, because those were our friends and our neighbors, right? And so, you know, I don't foresee us changing too much in terms of our downtown strategies. I think more of it is the internal part of, you know, what do we need to give the employees and the customers to kind of give them tools to succeed in the workplace and bring them back to, and give them a reason to come back to the office by reinventing the space.
Are large real estate companies talking to you and coming up with these questions? So what could be a reason to go back to the office?
You know, we hear a lot from the various companies as to, you know, what their ideas are online about what the future workspace is. And to be honest, you know, we watch those webinars just like people are watching this one. You know, we read those white papers. I think my prescription on my glasses has changed, you know, 10 times since we went out. I think I read more now than I ever had before in terms of design and workspace design. And we absorb all that, you know, it's all important. It all has relevance. And so those are things that we're using to kind of figure out, you know, what does the future look like from a location need or from a, you know, a square footage need for all the different designs that were coming together. And, you know, we don't really know yet because the design isn't set yet. You know, we haven't had enough people come back into the office to test some of the ideas that we're doing. So we don't know if it's going to increase our square footage, decrease, stay the same. So, you know, we are basically at this point just sponges, just trying to soak up everything that's out there, whether it be from Vitra or whether it be from one of our real estate partners or other design partners that are out there.
So, there was a good question for the audience. And by the way, whenever you on the screen are willing, please put your question to the chat. There was a question about sustainability. So you are, I would say, you are a heavyweight in the industry as a tenant, and you could make a real change by the pressure you bring to the developers. So how in a mid or long-term strategy beyond sustainability, like the United Nations SDGs, part of your real estate strategy?
We have a team, our sustainability team, that kind of helps coordinate and prioritize for initiatives like that. My team most specifically engages a lot on healthy materials within the buildings. So we spend a lot of time with our sustainability team, looking at all the products that go in, from the drywall to the paint to the carpets to the glues, to the finish on our tables, the fabrics, the foams. And we prioritize with our sustainability team to figure out, okay, where are places that we can make an impact? And oftentimes we make an impact on a small level where we can change the products that we use to make our buildings more sustainable and help kind of drive towards some of those lead points that we need. But the ones that actually we love the most are when we can actually sit down with the manufacturer and point out the things that we're not quite happy about with their product. And they're open to working with us and figuring out a solution, or even developing a new product that they can sell to other consumers out in the marketplace that is far more sustainable and healthier for employees. We have a real drive to try and eliminate red list chemicals within everything that we put into our buildings. With our sustainability partners and with our other vendor partners that manufacture, we're really having a great impact, not only on our spaces, but spaces that other people are purchasing these products for as well. And it's really great to see. I mean, there's a number of companies that have kind of pulled together products where at first they were resistant, but then when we showed them, the potential of this beyond just our orders, they get really excited and are really eager to kind of push and make change.
Let us step a little bit outside the building and thinking about the public areas around the buildings and connectivity. In which city where you are with a building in the CBD, what is the city where you say, Raphael, this city is really advanced, how they think about connectivity and what makes life easy, sustainable, inclusive? Is there any city where you say, Raphael, there you could learn a lot?
I actually not sure I can answer that one for you. And, every city is unique. Every city has, there's always reason and purpose behind the way a city is. And it's kind of hard for me as an outsider that doesn't necessarily live there to understand the complexities that go into why a city functions the way it does, right? I'm sure a lot of people come to San Francisco and they look around, they can't understand, why certain things are done the way they're done, but there are so many outside influences and so many outside community inputs that go into making decisions that it's too complex to make a universal kind of blanket approach, right?
Interesting. Good, thank you. So another question is, you talk, and some question before us, you highlight the importance of the leadership. So for your leadership, how they deal with space as a tool, and what do you believe, what will change after this kind of experience out of the perspective of the leadership, how they use the space in the future?
There's a lot of talk that our leaders understand that there's change coming, right? Because the workplace, everybody's gone remote and are able to kind of be productive from home. But there's still that sense that in order to be innovative and creative, you still need to collaborate. And right now, the leadership is really looking at that ability to ramp up that collaboration space within our offices and figure out how to better leverage that to drive innovation within our employees. A lot of that stems from our culture, right? We have a very strong culture at Salesforce, and our real estate, again, is that physical expression thereof. And as our culture, in-office culture, shifts to trying to drive a little bit more of that interaction and collaboration, our real estate design is going to have to shift to kind of support that. And those are decisions that, are driven by the leaders of our company, because they kind of frame the vision, right? And so as we kind of develop that and we start to coalesce that in the next few months here, we'll be able to kind of build on that from the design perspective and figure out what is going to be important for the company and for the employees. We believe that, leadership really helps kind of coalesce the employees behind a decision, and really kind of helps frame what the reasoning is behind it. And so we need to figure out what's the best way to execute. And we're, like I said, just kind of scratching the surface. We have a lot of ideas, and as soon as things start to coalesce from a leadership standpoint as to what they're really thinking the future is going to look like for real estate, I think we'll be really quick to be able to act and come up with some great spaces for our employees to do the best work of their lives.
So there will be a big shift in the context how we work, physically and virtually. What do you think will be the biggest shift in your organization, how you work together, how the employees work together, and what that means for space?
I think technology is going to be one of the bigger shifts. We've seen a lot of design where people have brought agile workspaces in and collaborative workspaces mixed with desks and teaming areas. But I think one of the advantages that one of the opportunities that is still out there is the technology to help link the employee to that space. Now, we've developed kind of the work.com platform to help manage the employees getting into the buildings and into the larger aspect of connecting with other employees to collaborate in the space and to help kind of manage properties. But what we're still waiting for, and we're still trying to figure out, is how do we connect loose space with scheduling and teams that need a small huddle area that they can reserve that might not necessarily be connected with a conference room or things like that. So I think there's some cool future technology that's going to come out of this kind of remote working arena, where it makes it easier for people to find their teams within space, where it's easier for them to kind of book and locate space within a building, as well as, I think employees are looking for a lot more information of how their space performs. And, we're starting to kind of look at that to make sure that the employees understand that, their space is safe, that it's been cleaned, that it has good air. And so I think those are some really next steps in the workspace that, employees haven't really thought about much in the past, but are now come to light as an important part of the workplace.
Do you have any idea what is the average age of your employees in San Francisco?
I don't. I will say that, one of the interesting things that came to light a few years ago when I first started here was that now is a unique time in the workspace. We've never had more varied generations in the workspace than we've ever had before. And, it's made it difficult to kind of prioritize and figure out how to make everybody comfortable and give them the tools that they need, because different generations think differently. They have different expectations. They use technology differently. I mean, even my team, I call myself the old man, but I'm not old in any respect, right? But I look at the technology that some of the other people on my team utilize and are familiar with intimately. And, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to get trained on it so that I can communicate the same way they do so that we stay connected. So it's vastly important that, when we design the spaces, that we make it so that it's accessible for everybody and that it's a universal space for everybody. And we just hope that we foster that ability for people to kind of educate each other as you move through the space and learn from each other, so that everybody has access to the same tools and can kind of perform at the same level and, you know, work effectively.
If you make a jump in 10 years from now, so the average age, no more than 60% of the employees in your area in the States are 30 years or younger, 30 years. So they're 20 now. I believe the most of the time now, these young people stay even in a virtual context. Do you think about to build digital twins of your physical spaces so that there is an intersection in 10 years from now? That you have a little bit like Ready Player One?
We have not thought about that. I have some friends that are working on some of that, not for us, but you know, the idea of interacting and living in a full virtual world is a nice idea, but I think with what's happened now during the pandemic and everybody at home, I think we realize that virtual is great for a lot of things, but nothing beats the physical contact and interaction. I don't know how many people I've had that have been like, you know, I just want to shake somebody's hand, or, you know, if we were together, I'd give you a hug, right? And nothing compares to that digitally.
Yeah, agree. You share so many things, and thank you for the insight at Salesforce. But what could other companies, if you would say, Rafa, these 2 or 3 things you could learn from Salesforce? What would you mention what we could learn from Salesforce to be prepared for the future?
You know, I think one of the big things is, you know, culture is important. You know, it helps kind of bind everybody together, especially when you're coming from a very diverse background, global background that everybody has. You know, having that strong Salesforce culture helps kind of bring people together, helps them engage, you know, and helps them connect with their employees a little bit easier. It also helps us, it's a big part of Salesforce. It helps us attract new talent. It helps kind of make them feel comfortable. And it helps everybody kind of ground into the same vision for the company, right? I think the other part that's really important is you know, having a company that has a strong value base, right? You know, a lot of people, especially younger people, are going to work for companies not because of the perks that they give, not because of, you know, they get Fridays off or things like that. A lot of younger workers, a lot of other people are going to work for companies because they have the same value system. You know, if you look at Salesforce, you know, customer success is a strong value with us. Trust, you know, innovation, equality, and those resonate with a lot of people in terms of their own personal values. You know, sustainability it's not one of the company values, but it's definitely one of the major underlying ideas behind everything we do, and how we interact with our communities. You know, I also think that the other part that is very important is how we use our platform as a tool for change, right? Businesses have grown bigger. They have a bigger voice, a bigger stake in communities, and Salesforce has definitely leveraged our employees to kind of help drive that message home of community change and help driving, you know, sustainability, equality, and innovation out into the workplace. And connecting our employees with our communities has really been a driving force. I mean, we've donated millions of dollars to various nonprofits and good causes throughout the world. You know, there are, I think, 5.5 million VTO hours. And, you know, those are some of the most important things that businesses can do to not just, you know, help with customer success and innovation, but also make sure that, you know, you're taking care of the community that you're working in, right? We're a company that's there to make a product, but we're also there to help and serve the community. We're not there to kind of take advantage. We're there to be part of the community, a long-standing part of that community. And part of that means that we need to give back and be an active member of that community. And our employees have definitely stepped up and show that they want to be part of their community. And Salesforce is always there to kind of back them and give them the support to do that.
So to the audience outside, before I step into your questions, I will have two other questions for you, Matthew. And so my first one is, you talk so often about the communities where you're in, so where you're part of the city. Maybe there would not be a limitation, because currently the most of your buildings are towers. So if there would be not a space issue in terms of density, what do you believe would be the perfect building for companies in 10 years from now? The building typology.
Oof. You know, we're still.
If you could really dream.
If you were to dream.
Maybe there would not be a limitation.
You know, I like the towers. Let me turn this back on you. Let me turn this back on you for a second. When you came to visit me in San Francisco last time, where did I take you?
A ground floor, then some of the employee floors, and then the sky floor.
The sky floor, right? And that sky floor is an inspiration to just about anybody that steps on there, right? It's a wonderful experience. You know, it is our community floor. You know, we hang our shingle on the door, all are welcome, you know, and it's where we invite our community in to be part of Salesforce. And it's where we show that we are part of the community. You know, and I think the towers also, you know, they inspire people, right? I mean, architecture is one of those things that, you know, you hope you design the building that people vehemently hate and vehemently love, right? And stand behind, because if you design the tower that's kind of nobody talks about, it kind of disappears. And so, you know, we kind of, I like that idea of, you know, the tower being a focal point for companies to set up in a city, right? It helps kind of drive density within the city, which has definite environmental benefits, you know, but it also helps kind of build that downtown community where you've got storefront owners, you've got shops, and it helps drive the economy down there. You know, my big thing is community. I grew up in suburbs here in the States, and, you know, the vast office parks that you see kind of scattered around the US are okay, but they also lack something, right? There's no vibrancy, there's no soul. And I really enjoy, you know, working downtown where you have a lot of the people and a mix of people from all around that interact. I think it drives innovation, it drives creativity, it drives equality and tolerance, and makes us all better people when we are, you know, together, right?
So last question from my side is, it seems all the things you share with us, they're also driven by your passion. So what drives you to do this kind of job and to inspire you and make you curious and give you the power to do the things?
You know, got a number of passions in life. My biggest design passion is furniture. You know, I love furniture. Everybody asks me what I do to kind of relax on the weekends. I go to my shop downstairs and make furniture.
Wow, that's so good.
I like to build things, and, you know, building things helps me break down all the different components and understand what's going on. You know, it helps me realize that, you know, everything is a problem, and you just need to tackle one problem at a time to drive to the final solution. And it helps me kind of realize that you can't tackle all the problems at once, right? You the other thing that kind of helps me out and gets me centered is people like to meditate. I don't meditate as much as I probably should, but I ride a bicycle, and I ride a bicycle
Gravel bike.
a lot. And it gets me out in nature. It reminds me, what's important about the Bay Area to me. It helps me disengage my brain from the city and work, and helps me kind of focus and center, and gives me time to kind of gather thoughts and prioritize while I'm out there.
Good, thank you. Now a question from Switzerland, from the University in St. Gallen, from Hans-Jörg. So what do you recommend universities to do that students match with their skills to the new time to work?
I think one of the things that was important to me when I was a student wasn't any of the classroom work, right? We took drawing classes and sketching and all of that stuff, which I think is important, but not necessarily a huge priority. I think what universities need to do and students need to do is to try and figure out how to get students more engaged with businesses that are out there. One thing that people I don't think realize is that relationships and connections are important. They help drive innovation. They help help people understand what's going on in the world. And one of the things that I had a lot of when I was at university is, factory visits. It really inspired me to then kind of deal with a lot of manufacturing. We had a lot of connections with local designers where we would go in and have sessions and chit chat and talk. And I think those are still important. I think they're actually more important now, right? I think a lot of people hang their hat on, I can draw pretty pictures, but pretty pictures don't solve problems. And so I think having those connections and having a vast array of experiences that you can draw on really help you problem solve.
Another question from Gian Pablo Villamil. So are there any technologies that are playing a significant role in adapting to the new situation? What has caught up your attention?
I haven't seen too many. And I think a lot of that at Salesforce, we kind of saw that there wasn't any kind of great technological solution for helping people kind of put all the pieces together around safety and real estate and getting back in the office. And that's part of the reason why we started work.com, right? Is to kind of have a central tool where we can connect employees and real estate and teams together to figure out how to get back in the office and monitor everybody's safety and monitor, the real estate that we had. In fact, Salesforce, our real estate team is customer number one on this. And so as we learn, our software is getting better because we're starting to see, as people get back into the office, what we missed or what we need to change or what we need to update. I think the biggest thing is that although people knew that something like this could happen, nobody had the right tools to figure out how to manage it or how to help business figure out how to survive in a remote world.
Thank you. There's another question from Christian. So are rural working hubs or satellites drive a kind of change from only downtown strategy? So do you think also in these kind of ideas in maybe bigger CBDs?
We've been talking about that as well, that there might be some hub and spoke model, right? And we're not throwing anything out right now. Those are strategies that are kind of in our list of ideas that we want to pull together. And like I said, as soon as we kind of figure out what the leadership perspective is kind of marching forward and we see where we want to go as a company and as a culture, we can have that card in our pocket and pull it out and say, this is a solution to a problem that you brought us, and we'll have it ready.
Good. Question from Florian is coming in yet. That is a good question. What do you think are the right measures to enhance serendipity?
The right measures to enhance serendipity. You know, I haven't really thought about that yet. You know, if I were to kind of take a stab at it, you know, everybody talks about innovation and new products, but those are hard to gauge and hard to see where the seed is planted, right? I would probably say one of the things that I would look for, because I spend a lot of time walking around the floors that we have and just watching people. I love, you know, sitting in the corner watching everybody move around and how they interact with stuff, because what they tell you they do isn't always what they do, right? It's probably, they probably tell you 20% of what they do versus the 80% that they're actually doing in a space. And I would probably say that, you know, I would judge the serendipitous interactions more on that visual data and the audio data of, you know, how loud are your spaces, right?
That's interesting.
Do you hear people laughing and, you know, chit-chatting? You know, is it a loud roar, which I don't think is probably great for productivity or serendipity? Or is it that great that there's probably a nice kind of audio pitch that is that amount of talking and chatter back and forth that actually is thoughtful and intentional versus silence or the loud roar of a party type thing. So I would imagine there's probably some kind of audio metric that we could probably come up with that would help us kind of figure out, are people making those connections and are they good connections and valuable connections?
So at school, serendipity was always where I was, because there it was always loud. So, thank you very much. I want to close this session now. Your dear audience, first, even this session is recorded, and you will get also a graphic recording in the last, I would say, 1 week from my dear friend Matthias. Then thank you to you, Matthew, for all these insights. Whenever you have the audience are around in one of these cities, go into the Salesforce building and get your own picture about this kind of experience. The other point is, whenever you are around at the Basel area, or while I'm Ryan, come on, visit us to our campus. So stay healthy in the next months. Matthew, hopefully we see each other next year in 2021 in real, and then we give us a hug. And I want to say thank you to the Swissnex team. Bye-bye, and see you next year with something surprising. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Raphael.
Many thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.